So in early to mid year 2007, a new era of DirectX 10 gaming was heating up, and both ATI and Nvidia had new graphics cards ready to go. For just $500, Nvidia was selling the mighty Geforce 8800 GTX. And for just $400, ATI was selling you a little bit less capable but still potent Radeon 2900 XT. But what if you don't have that kind of money to spend on a graphics card? Well, not your worries. Because for just a low price, $150, ATI was selling you this Radeon 2600 XT with just one catch. It had just 120 unified shaders compared to 320 for the high-end Radeon. Not to be outdone, here comes Nvidia with their GeForce 8600 GT for just $130. But there's also a catch. It only had 32 unified shaders compared to 128 for the high-end GeForce. So we're going to see if these supposedly mid-range DirectX 10 graphics cards could actually run DirectX 10 games. Our test system for today is the Gigabyte 965p DS3 motherboard, a Core 2 Duo E7300 processor, and 4 gigs of DDR2 800 memory. One of the first DirectX 10 games was Call of Juarez from the year 2006, and here already we have to use 720p resolution and the performance detail setting. So here we can see both cards have their GPU loaded around 99 to 100%, and as we keep walking, the frame rate is about the same for both of these, around 35 frames per second, sometimes a little bit more or less, but mostly the same performance. Next up we got BioShock from the year 2007. Again, we're using 720p resolution, but with the high graphics quality setting. So in this game we get performance mostly in the 40s, sometimes dropping to the 30s, depending how much action is happening on the screen. Both cards perform about the same. So yeah, they're playable, but only if you use a low resolution like 720p. Next up we got the most hyped up game from the year 2007, Crysis. In this case we're running 720p resolution and all the graphics settings set to medium. And in this game both cards are performing solidly in the low 20s. When there's heavy action on the screen, sometimes they even drop below 20. So in this case I would not call this an enjoyable DirectX 10 gaming experience. World in Conflict, a real-time strategy game from 2007, using 720p resolution and medium graphics setting. Both cards are stuck solidly in the low 20s, sometimes even dropping below 20 when the action gets heavy. So it is a slow-paced real-time strategy game, so I would say it's barely playable with this kind of performance, but I would not be happy if I spent the money on my new DirectX 10 gaming card and getting this kind of performance. Far Cry 2 from the year 2008, running 720p resolution and a mix of medium and high settings. So once again, both cards are stuck solidly in the low 20s. I would not be a very happy camper with this kind of performance. I might even decide to take a flamethrower and just start torching things. Stalker Clear Sky from the year 2008, using enhanced full dynamic lighting for DirectX 10 mode, medium settings, 720p resolution. And no surprise, both cards are barely able to make it to 20 frames per second in this first person shooter game, and sometimes even dropping below 20. Not very good for playing a DirectX 10 game and a DirectX 10 graphics card. So you're sitting there feeling bummed out about your poor DirectX 10 graphics cards, but don't worry, things are about to get worse. Because if you had waited about 3 or 4 months, you could have gotten a real potent DirectX 10 graphic cards like the Geforce 8800 GT or the Radeon 3870. And we're going to take a look. What if you had waited and bought a Radeon 3870 for about $220, available later in 2007. This time in Call of Juarez, we're going to use 1920 by 1080 resolution. And in the actual game, you can see that you even get higher frame rates at higher resolution with the Radeon 3870. This time performance is mostly in the 40s with only occasional drops below 40 frames per second. In Bioshock, this time we can use a higher resolution, 1920 by 1080. And in the actual game, we also get higher frame rates, mostly 50s, 60s, occasionally dropping below 50 frames per second when there's a lot of action and effects happening on screen. But overall, you can use a higher resolution and get higher frame rates. In Crisis, we're now using 1920 by 1080 resolution, medium settings. And in this case, in the actual game, the performance is still in the 20s, so not great, but it is Crisis after all. No surprises there, but at least you can use a higher resolution while complaining about how badly Crisis runs on your system. Stalker Clear Sky, this time using 1920 by 1080 resolution, DirectX 10 mode. And in this case, not only do you get a higher resolution, but you also get better performance. Frame rate mostly in the 30s, occasionally dropping below 30, but in this case that's definitely a nice improvement. More playable and a more enjoyable gameplay with the Radeon 3870.